I have to press go live, even though it's scheduled. But it's scheduled. What does the scheduling do if it doesn't just automatically?
I guess to
I,
remind you to hit the button to
To hit
go
the
live.
button?
that's where it
Cool.
started. That's where the video starts.
It's fine.
Yeah, I think it's working on YouTube now, so
Okay,
which
I see
is
it on YouTube. Well, this is how they know that we didn't pre-script our like wonderful dialogue that we're gonna get.
fully authentic. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, Chris, do you want to say something at the beginning?
Yeah, I guess. So I don't know who saw the post on Korean Indie, but I think I forget when we were talking. We just were having a conversation on Twitter about music, and then I think it went to DMs where we were just like complaining about things, and then we said like, oh, we should just have a live stream and talk about stuff, and then scheduling and time kind of pushed it back, and then we finally got time together, and that's where we came to today. And so essentially, it's kind of a talk between Victoria Vark and St. Lennox, and I'm just more moderating and putting in commentary where it's unnecessary about different topics because you guys are the main focus of this.
No, you've got to be there in case Victoria and I just like start having at it, like we start arguing, and you got to like, no, everybody calm down.
But that might be the best video ever.
Just all of my hot takes. Yeah, I'm sure this is what the people want.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so essentially, I think the first thing was we were talking about you both were in Iowa at some point, and then it became a bigger conversation between Midwestern and coastal Asians.
Yeah. Well, here I can just say like how long I was in Iowa, and then we'll go from there. So I was born in Missouri, and moved to Iowa when I was about 5, I think. And from there, I was in Iowa uh, for most of the rest of the time up until I graduated from high school, except I spent a 2-year stint in Cincinnati, Ohio for violin lessons, and I spent 1 year in Toronto, Canada for violin stuff. But otherwise, I was in Iowa for the rest of that time. So it's been a big part of my life, I guess. How about you, Victoria? Do I call you Victoria or Victoria?
I
I'll
guess
call you.
Victoria is fine. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
okay.
most people in my everyday life don't call me Victoria, but it is funny because a lot of people in music, like I've gotten many emails from journalists that they just like don't know how to deal with it. They're just like, should I call you Victoria or Victoria like in the article? And so there's been ones where it's just like all four. It's like my first and then sometimes my last name and then sometimes Victoria and sometimes Mark. It's really funny. Um, but anyways, what I think is so interesting is like we have these almost like opposite stories so far, like in our relationship to Iowa and the Midwest. So I grew up outside New York City, in New Jersey.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a lot of Koreans there. My parents
hmm.
still have an apartment in Fort Lee.
Okay.
So yeah, which is like um, it feels like its own like Koreatown. Like most of the signs are in Korean.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, yeah. It's so there's a lot of Koreans out there. And then I came to Iowa when I started college. So I went to Grinnell. So I moved to Grinnell in
Oh,
2018. Yeah. So
okay.
and then I spent 2 years there, and then the third year um, I was abroad in Paris for a little bit, and then I took time off to do music. And then COVID happened, but I moved back to Grinnell, and I spent a year in Grinnell there. And then I moved to Iowa City in August, and I'll be here at least for a year, but probably longer.
Okay, cool. Iowa
Yeah,
City's cool.
yeah, I
I've only
Is it?
really
been
like
through
it.
there a bit, but it's it's nice.
Yeah, they call it like the small town for the arts or something. So
Okay.
um, yeah, but yeah, it's definitely been fun to be here. It's definitely like more stuff to do than Grinnell. Um,
Okay. So I was gonna say you'll be less bitter about Iowa than I will be because you're still there. You can't say anything bad about it.
no, we're here to hash it all out. Yeah, because I'm super curious, like what I don't know what it was like for you growing up in Iowa, because I feel like I would have been a different person if I spent, my formative years here than I don't
Yeah.
know, the East Coast.
Well, I mean, I in while I was living it, I enjoyed my time when I was in Iowa. I think it was great. I mean, it was weird in the sense that there weren't that many like Asian people in general. Um, and even though it's a college town, so like there is like a sizable Asian population and a sizable Korean population there because it is a college town. You've got a lot of people coming over for graduate school or professors, but like in my classes, like day to day, I think I was, the only Korean person, usually the only Asian person in a lot of my classes, which is weird, and I think it affects a lot of like Asian people growing up in the Midwest, where there isn't really that, you don't have like a lot of other Asian people to do stuff with, except for the I think Korean people will try and like build resources to get Korean kids involved with other Korean kids. So we had like a Korean like summer like study thing where we would learn Korean and um like yeah, take Korean classes and things like that. But that was really like people had to go through some substantial effort to make that stuff happen, oftentimes through the Korean church that they had. So I mean, I think in general, there's a lot of people that grow. If you don't grow up with a lot of other Korean people or other Asian people around you, it can kind of affect your identity in ways that I think often happens to people where they're just not used to seeing other Asian people. Especially if they also don't see Asian people like in media. I think that can really affect people, but that said, I think like my time growing up in Iowa was pretty enjoyable during that period. Aside from that, you know, just being like a few Asian people in my class. I think aside from that, people are nice, but you aren't exposed to as much of the world, so it's not going to be as, I don't know, as much of a thing.
Oh, I have a
Yeah.
question, Andrew. I think we're around the same age, or ish. I think
I'm 42.
so, not that close. Well, no, because you're.
I'm
I think
22.
you're as. I think you're as old as my brother, actually.
Oh, okay, okay,
So I'm 39, and
okay.
we have the
Oh, that's
the,
that's
the
pretty
young
close.
one. so so I understand your experience a lot because I grew up in Florida. Um,
Mm,
Same kind of thing. It's like mainly Caucasian kids, and then like here and there you'd have like Hispanic, and then Black people. And it wasn't until high school that I really saw more people. And then when I came out to California, when I went to UC Berkeley, I went to go visit the campus because I was
oh my
curious, and
god.
I saw like ocean of black hair, Asian kids, and I got nervous
Oh
because I'd
yeah.
never seen that before. Because like
Uh
in Florida, you don't see that. So I'm kind of curious with Victoria. Like you've kind of grown up in this different era of there's more Asians around. Well, not on media, you see a little more than like what we used to see. Like we didn't really see anything. You know, for us, it was always the butt of the joke. That was always the Asians on TV or movies and stuff.
yeah.
But for you, you're seeing like a different side of things, especially because his Andrew's experience in Iowa, and now you're there. Like, how's it been for you? Like, is there more multiculturalism? Are people more like sharing of their cultures, or are people kind of still walled off?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess we'll start with like where I am now and work backwards maybe. So I would say, I mean, Iowa, it's still a lot of white people. You know, it's just that's just kind of a lot of middle America. And I think it's in part because it's like there's it's just like I think there's people of color who just don't necessarily like want to move out here. And it makes sense. Like if you have a group of people who are like you or, you know, live in a much more diverse area, like want like that being a draw to like stay as opposed to just like I'm gonna live among like, you know, 80% of white people, you know, like my parents moved to Wyoming, which has been insane. It's
Oh
like
wow.
I know them, and I know the one lady who like, and her husband who like, and she makes kimchi, and they're like from Korea, and then that's it. Like I don't know anybody else. So that's like, and I would say here it's a little bit. There's like a few Korean supermarkets, and there's
Oh
a few Korean
wow.
restaurants in Iowa City. Yeah, so I'm not sure if that was like that when you were growing up. So there's definitely, you know, people here, but it
Mm.
still like feels very white. Just like walking around day to day. Um, but I think it's like I don't know. I also just like don't interact with people all that much just because I have a remote job. I live like yeah, like with one person, and you know, I don't need to commute to work. I'm not really like out in the world unless I have to be.
Yeah.
Other than then it's like that or I'm like on tour and it's just like a different kind of beast. But yeah, I think like growing up, I mean, we were surrounded by a lot of Korean kids. Korean church is huge. We were thinking about going, but we didn't go. But there's one in like many towns. Yeah, like you don't have to commute far if you want to, you know, go to church
Yeah.
in New Jersey for sure. But I think what I struggled with in middle school and high school is well, middle school, like all of my close friends who were mostly like other Asian kids were like they all moved away. Like it's like it was the kind of town where it's like people's parents would move, work for 2 years, and then go back to Korea,
Mm.
or Japan too sometimes, and other places. And I think that kind of it's really hard when I was like 12 or 13 and you're like really developing who you think you are at that, you know, at that age. And in high school, I didn't really feel like I fit in with a lot of the other Korean kids or just like people in generally. Like I didn't, um, I ate lunch alone most of the time. I was just, you know, doing my art
Ah.
thing and music thing. Yeah. But it's been nice, like post high school to keep up with some people. I have like 4 friends from high school still that I like actively talk to. Um, and I think it was like, but also there's this divide of just like Koreans like from Korea, and they would often like a lot of them would stick together. And then there were like Korean Americans who like were maybe more engaged with like Korean church and you know Key Club and like all of that stuff. And then it was like me and my one friend, and like we didn't speak Korean, but we were Korean and like kind of these two like outcasts in that. And so it was
Mm.
weird to be like I don't really have like a means of like connection sometimes. But yeah, me and Isabella are still friends. I just saw her in Chicago and she just moved back to New York. So I don't know. I don't know what any of that means, but I think
Well,
like yeah.
you know, I was gonna say right after. Well, after each of the schools that I graduated from, I think I had a lot of people that I was, you know, friendly with, and would interact and talk with them, and I kept up with people like moderately like after graduation, but within like a year or two, just I would say don't worry about it, because like so many of the people that like you interact with, I only really keep in touch with like less than 5 people from my undergrad. on a regular. It's probably more like 2. Law school, it's only just like a small handful. So yeah, it ends up being about the same no matter what.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my thought.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really hard when you connect to someone over time. Like you really know, because I have a friend from college who I don't talk to maybe like once every year or something like that. It's just like some Facebook message or it's like catch up, and it's like we just saw each other, and there's no awkwardness, and that's when you know like that's a good friendship. Like you just catch up, see what's going on, and then I'll talk to you next year. Have like make
Yeah.
sure you let me know what's going on, and that's how it works. And then the other friendships they kind of die off, but then you eventually make a new set. And I think I don't know, this is for me. As I got older, I found more valuable friendships with people of kind of diverse thoughts. But although San Francisco is not that diverse in thought, but different hobbies or different like ideas and stuff, and that's been a lot more helpful in like level setting of expectations and kind of life.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely did. Strangely, I made like some new friends who I wasn't friends with in law school, like afterwards, because of what just one or another reason. And it's interesting how that. Yeah, am I am friends with some people in from high school, but it's not that many. Um, yeah, and we had, oh my god, I'm gonna date myself. A few years ago, I had my 20th year high school reunion, and that was interesting. Like really, just like talked with a handful of people, and not so much other people. Just say hi and whatnot, but not so much. But yeah, as long as you got a few people that like you really keep in touch with, I think that's all that matters.
Yeah, I think I'm learning that more and more. And it's definitely weird, like this being my first year outside of like any sort of academic, institution. I'm just like, oh God, I don't know how to do this actually. Just like this is it forever. Like I have to wash dishes every day for the rest of my life, like the slow realization. And you're like, I have to cook every day, multiple times a day for myself so I don't starve.
No, just
Like
cook it all. Just cook like 8 servings. Just stuff 7 of them in the fridge. You have to eat
that's
the
what my
same thing
roommate
for
does.
3 days, but
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm so picky where I'm just like, like, because my parents are really into cooking. They're really, really good chefs. And that's, I think, who, like, I've acquired it from. And I'm just like, this is my meal plan for today, and I will have a new menu for tomorrow. Like, kind of ridiculous. But yeah, it's always nice when I go home and I'm just like, you guys make the best food. Just writing down
Mhm.
so many notes and you're like, cool, thanks, bye.
Wait, so what's the best thing you can cook then?
What's the best thing I can cook? I make a pretty good ramen, and sometimes I'll add either, and here this is going to sound very strange, but either like ketchup or milk like at the end, just to like add a different flavor to the broth. The ketchup brings out the acidity, and I guess I don't know what the milk would do, but it does something because it definitely tastes different. Yeah,
Mhm.
well,
yeah,
they've got the creamy ramen. There's like
yes,
the creamy chicken flavor. So yeah, no, it's like the same thing.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
I will say I was gonna say I'm surprised at how much in various I think dishes from China, Japan, and Korea that there will be just an odd dish where like one of the ingredients is ketchup, and it's like, yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So it just adds a nice flavor there.
I don't know. Like some Korean food is just messed up though, with like the experimentation they do. Like what was it? When I went to Korea back in 2014 or 15, like the street vendors just had the weirdest stuff. Yeah, it's
Like
like really
what?
cheap. Oh, it's like
Oh, did you have you had Isaac toast?
no,
What
I
is
haven't had
Isaac
Isaac toast.
toast?
My brother told me about this. I had never seen. I mean, it's just I don't know. I get a lot of these like ads to like click on something and it's a video of like somebody in like a Korean street vendor making like these adventurous breakfast sandwiches. I think that's Isaac Toast is pretty much that. It'll be on like white bread, but there'll be egg and some kind of meat, and then who knows what comes after that. I haven't had it myself, but I now I want to try it because yeah.
Mhm. I just know
So
Koreans
that
like putting corn on everything.
Oh my god. It's so true.
Because like I was staying at a friend's place and I went and got a pizza because I was hungover, and the lady spoke English, so I just ordered like a cheese pizza. I came home and then I ate it and I was like, wait, what is this crunchy thing? And then I looked and it's like corn, and so I went back and I asked her like another day. I was like, is it like standard to put corn? And she's like, where are you from? And I was like California, and she was like, oh, okay, no corn. And it threw me off so much. I just didn't get it.
No, that's so funny because it's so true. I don't know. There's this like brand of like, and you can get them here, like this corn chip, but it's not like a tortilla or anything like that. It's more of like it's just like, it's kind of sweet, but it's more potato chippy, I guess. But it's just
huh.
a corn chip, and there's like 10 bags at my grandma's house. Yeah, corn is her
So,
favorite food.
so in the comments, Jenny says Korea is like America 2.0 now. Everything is deep fried with cheese. Is that do you recollect that in your I do recollect a lot of things with cheese where it's not like, like an American hipster would be like, oh, it's got like a smoked Gouda or like, a
Mhm.
10-year Parmesan. It's the cheese is usually just like, wow, that's really processed cheese.
Yeah.
It's pretty common in like a lot of the like quick food like on the street. But most of the stuff I went there is like all the musicians would be like, oh, let's go have barbecue. Let's go eat barbecue. I'm just like, okay. It's like number 7 of the week.
Well, you can barbecue anything.
Well, it's like they don't. I had a friend who asked me like, "Oh, do you want to get like beef?" And I was like, "Oh no, I don't eat beef." And he had like visible like sigh, and he was like, "Thank you." And I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Beef is so expensive here, so
Oh,
you would break my wallet." Because he wants to show me like a good time, right? He's like wants to be a good
oh,
host. And I
okay.
was like, no, let's just go to like your corner place that you always go to and just like eat there. And he was like totally happy, and we got really drunk, we ate a lot, and then it was a good night. But it's just like it's crazy, just the how food culture there is changing, like the kind of like you said, it's like America 2.0 with certain things, but then the elevation of like traditional Korean food is also interesting because I watch a lot of YouTube on that. Um,
Hmm.
but
You
I think
know,
like the normal food is just getting people getting fat there.
uh, I think I have the opposite problem that you had, Chris, which is that my husband doesn't eat beef. So if I'm going to make Korean food, in order to have something that approximates beef, I need to buy lamb, which is
Mm.
more expensive. I mean, it's fine, but it's weird because you don't, like I'm doing my impression of a cow, I guess. If you're a cow, you've you've got like big cow muscles just like everywhere. So it's easy to be like, oh, I'll just get like a big like hunk of something, and then I'll slice it thinly and do whatever. But with lambs are sort of very very. It's my lamb
Is that your
impression.
lamb impression?
Lambs are very small, and they have like tiny muscles, so you can't you can't like find a big piece to like make bulgogi very easily. You got that doesn't work out the the same way.
Mhm.
So I've been like, going to different butchers and trying to find like, hey, do you have like a lamb that's like big for his size? And I don't know where the conversation goes from there.
The fattest lamb you've ever seen. Which one is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been vegetarian for the past like 8 years, 9 years, and then but I recently started eating fish again because I was like not getting enough nutrients. But what my parents do now is like the like impossible beef, it's like the fake
Mhm.
meat,
Mm.
yeah, but they'll like flavor it like bulgogi and it's pretty and they'll like make bibimbap out of it and it's really, really good.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
almost can't tell the difference because yeah, it's like it's so chewy anyway, so it's like
Mm. No, I'll have to try. I will give that a spin.
Now, there's a musician in Korea named Big Foni who he became vegan. I think he's done veganism a couple times based on it because he has some like he has gout, and so I think meat like really flares it up. And he said that veganism and like vegetarianism is actually becoming a bigger thing in Korea. So I'm kind of curious. Like I'm personally not vegan or vegetarian whatsoever, but I'm curious on like what they're doing in that aspect of like, you know, finding people who are choosing that lifestyle when Korea is like such a meat heavy culture in general.
yeah, I know it's like the best. Like I do, it's the only things I dream about is like yeah, is barbecue and good food. Like it's just like because they're not gonna have like a good substitute. I mean, you can get close, but it's never gonna be the same thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's definitely because so much of it is like meat and fish. Um, but I'm sure there's yeah, I'm curious to see if there's like vegan alternatives or like what kind of that looks like.
Well, I did actually. Somebody in the comments, Jenny, I saw that she had a Korean vegan cookbook. So I actually want to check that out. And the other direction for Korean veganism that I have seen in cookbooks is that I know that there have been a number of um, Korean Buddhist chefs who have like become prominent. Somebody was on I can't remember there's like a TV.
Netflix, Chef's
Yeah,
Table.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's a Korean Buddhist chef who,
Mhm.
who was cooking a lot of vegan stuff there. And then I have a cookbook by a different Korean Buddhist chef. And my thought was that they must not like each other because they've got like it's such a small market. But there's a different Korean Buddhist chef who has some dishes, and I've looked through that, and I don't know. I think it would be interesting. Like there was the one dish that I still have not made that I would like to try is it was a green tea sujebi in like
Mm.
I don't know, must be like a mushroom or like a light broth of some sort. But I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
Wait, so
Yeah.
Victoria, if you're vegetarian, does that mean like broth is off the table too?
No, I came on broth, you know. I'm just like, yeah, it's whatever. Like I eat, like it's so funny because like I've had some moments on tour, like we on our rider we put deli meat on there because that was the one item our drummer requested. And so I was just like, if we have this turkey, like I'm like hungry. I'm really, really hungry. And I would just like, I mean, it's free. I'll eat it.
Mhm.
It's going to go in the
Mm.
garbage otherwise. So now, and then my boyfriend left like some salami like at my house. And he's like, I don't want to take it. So now I'm just like, well, I guess I'll just eat the salami. So I'm slowly becoming not vegetarian, but I'm not like willing to prepare my own meat yet just because I like only started learning to cook as a vegetarian. So I'm just like, oh right, you
Mhm.
have to do the like separating of like meat and vegetables so you don't contaminate the vegetables. And I'm like, that's a lot of thought. I can't think that much. I'm
Hmm.
hungry. Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
I was gonna ask how is, because one one distinct difference between you and I, like in terms of like music lives, is that you can tour, and I can't possibly ever tour. So how is
Yeah.
touring? How is touring, and what's that been like?
It's been all right. So we had this like 2.5 week stretch back in September, and then I'm going on like a 5 show run next month. We also went out and played at Oberlin College, in
Oh,
Ohio. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, because all the hipsters wanted to hear us. They paid us good money, so we'll take a 6 hour drive out. But it's been all right. Like I really like the band that I've been playing with. Like we started playing as like nobodies in college. And and now it's like this thing, and it's like so it's been super cool. Yeah. Oh, why is touring out for me?
I
Oh,
think that's directed at
oh.
I think that's directed at me. Ian, you can
Okay.
correct me if I'm wrong. So the reason that touring is out for me is because I work full time as an attorney, and the idea that I mean, I could ask for one day off, but to be like, "Hey, I'd just like to take a week off," you know, goodbye clients, I'm not going to do anything for you for this. No, that would never happen. It could never happen. The only time that I could go touring is if I was this is the other horn of the dilemma. If I was to say, you know what, I'm going to take this time off for vacation, instead of doing something with my husband who I love very much, I'm going to go on tour, and he can come with me as part of the vacation. Also, not a go.
Yeah. Have you ever like thought it, or I don't know, do you wish that you were able to tour?
uh, I mean, I think in an ideal world, if I had all the time, yeah, I think that would be nice. I think it's, I don't, so I did tour, but it once, but it was a few weeks, and it was very early on. Must have been like 6 or 7 years ago, and I enjoyed the traveling. I think because I was just starting out, like I think it's difficult to build a base of people who can come out, especially like since at the time I think I had maybe just released my second record, and it was a little difficult how to figure things out. One thing that I learned though at the time was don't play a show in Pittsburgh on the Super Bowl. So that was, but yeah, I mean, I think now it would be a little bit easier because I have people like in various cities, and if I'm organized, then I could set something like that up. But it's difficult to find the time to take off for something like that. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, I think what's happened at least more recently is now like I people will ask me to play shows in the New York area, and so maybe that's it's not quite touring, but it's something that I can work with, and um, yeah,
Yeah. And I think it's like, I don't know. I think there's so much expectation of, I think a lot of musicians like my age being just like, oh well, if I'm gonna do this, I have to do it this one way, and I have to tour all the time, and it has to be like that. And like be it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't, if you don't tour, it doesn't make your music any less. And it's just like people, I see a lot of disgruntled, young adults tweeting about just like wanting to be able to like get their jobs and like play music only, and it's just like, for the vast majority of us, like that's never gonna happen, you know. And I think it's like, I don't know, I think it's, I appreciate when people are honest about it and like not fronting like they don't have, you know, a second job working at the bar, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say, because I interact with a lot of musicians um, that are, just starting out and trying to sort of figure out what they want to do with it. I think that there is immense pressure put on people to reach this idea, and when I say it out loud, it just doesn't make any sense to me. The ideal for them is that they want to make sure that they are able to survive only off of money that they've made through doing music, because they feel like, oh well, then I can say that the music is a career, and then that's some kind of like bar for them. And the problem is that it puts immense pressure on people, because it's very difficult to do that. And I don't know. I've seen musicians that put themselves in a financially bad position for themselves. That's not healthy, because they have this idea that they want to do that. I was talking to somebody at an open mic some time ago, who they were telling me that they had quit work, and they were just going to see if they could live off of like funds that they saved for a few months. And I was like, that's, you have to live the rest of your life. How are you going to be able to survive for another 40, 50 years? I don't understand.
I'm thinking 3 months ahead. You know? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But do you think? Oh, go ahead.
Well, the other thing I was going to say is, I think that there is also an industry out there that shames people for not being self-sufficient, and so they shame them and then put them in a position where they feel the need to buy services that will help them get to the next level. And it just ends up being this like terrible spiral that people get put in. And for me, I'm just, as I always attest to, sort of like, I work a regular job. That's the main job that I make money with. And the thing is that, like in some sense you would say that's not a music career, because I'm not surviving just off the money that I've made through my music. But in terms of just what I want to do artistically, I'm just like, somebody's surviving on their own and they're not doing as well as I am. So why is that professional economic marker, why does that need to be the thing? And especially if it puts people in a bad position. I don't know. That whole self-sufficiency thing has annoyed me. So I'm glad you brought that up, Victoria.
Yeah, totally. Chris, what were you going to say?
Oh, I just had a question, because now I think in general times have changed, right? Like before, you bought a CD, you had to go see the artist live to ever see that experience or that connection. And now with technology, I know, Victoria, you've done a few live stream concerts or like Instagram lives and whatnot. Do you, like, for both of you, do you see that as an alternative for younger artists to do more kind of streaming experiences as opposed to the live show? Like, I hope live shows never die, because live shows are amazing, but like to build up to doing a tour, like you do the kind of live streaming performances, like with the alternative aspects like Patreon or, donations and whatnot, to build up towards a full tour.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, the sad thing is like once shows started like happening again, I think there's been like more of a disinterest in live streaming, which I think is a shame, because like you said, I think it's a lot lower stakes in terms of like getting people to be able to hear you play, but without any of the like extreme stress that happens with like concerts. And it's like, oh, I didn't sell like 50 tickets, I'm never going to be able to play here again. Like I was so worried about that like all the time when I was playing shows more regularly. but it was nice to like take that pressure off. And now I'm back in that, obviously, because I'm promoting my first tour, and I'm just like, I know anybody in Kalamazoo, Michigan, like, you know, like, so I definitely, like, I think there's that. And I think in terms of just like accessibility, like not all venues are accessible, but you know, live streams are definitely more accessible for people with like physical disabilities. So I think there's that aspect too, where it's like, even if a show is happening in real life, like it should be streaming elsewhere too, for you know, people who like can't make it in that particular venue. I think like, I know, definitely know, like the internet, it's a space to like, I think for a lot of like younger people to just like have a band and, you know, make music, and then they'll like put out like 3 EPs and be like, we're playing our first show ever like this month, you know, and stuff like that happening, where it's like this emphasis on just like making and recording music that I think is really cool, as opposed to just like playing shows around and then like eventually recording. I feel like I had a funny experience because I spent like most of the past year and a half like building like my audience, or you know, presence or whatever, without releasing any music until like last week. So, you know, so it's been it's been really cool to like watch that growth. It's just like, oh, wasn't like actively making content or playing shows, but like people are still like, I'm still reaching and connecting with people.
I was gonna say the one thing that you don't get from the live streaming, which is, I guess, if COVID was out of the picture, that I'd want, is that sometimes I just want to go out and just like interact with people, just like socialize, and that's something that you don't really get from as an audience person from live streaming. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out like if any places have done anything to kind of remedy that aspect, because the only thing that I could think of is if somebody like played in one place and like it was live streamed at a bar, but I think that would still be weird. I don't know how to I don't know. I mean, because I guess there is you can have the ability to kind of personally interact with the people that are in the audience live streaming, because you know, you can say, I looked at Ian's question earlier, and so that's a way to interact with people. But also, I don't know, it's kind of like with like I think my older brother was saying how he goes to Korean church sometimes because he wants to meet girls. I shouldn't say this. I mean, like, that's like a thing though that people do though. People go to church because they want to socialize. You know, I guess, you know, you could speak to God or whatever, but also there's, you know, socializing with other people is like a thing that
Yeah. This is also so funny because I'm having this like flashback to when we moved towns in New Jersey. I was entering first grade, so I was about 6. And my parents were like looking at a new Korean church that we were thinking about going to because our old one was too far away. And I have this memory, it's just like the whole sermon was conducted in Korean, so I had no idea what was going on the whole time. I'm just like, I guess I can make a friend here in the thing we do after, but like, why do I have to sit through this? And it's like 2 hours and I don't know what's happening. Yeah, but I think you're right. I think for a lot of people, it is just like community and finding that. And I think it's valid to use that as like an organizing structure. And I think that's why like so many like communities of color still like engage with the church in that way, even though it's like this terrible, like, you know, originally like colonizing, you know, enterprise, but it's like left behind this organization for, I don't know, for people, and has become important to them. So
yeah,
I think that's the first place like Korean immigrants go, is they find a church just to meet Korean people, and then from there they decide to stay or to leave. And for my parents, it was leave. It's like not for them. So my mom like kind of found God later in life, and now she teaches Korean school at her church. So Sunday mornings, it's like, how do I fix this on this laptop you gave me? And I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about right now. It's 3 hours difference. Come on.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Do you think the Korean church could be an avenue for playing shows? Is that a thing?
That would be so cool because it's like I didn't even like think about that, but because all the punks will play like First Unitarian Church in Philly or like church and basement shows. So it would be cool to like do like Korean DIY and like a Korean church basement. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a journalist that contacted me a few months. I should follow up on this, but was saying, hey, there's I think he's in Long Island. Was saying, oh, there's a Korean church here, like we could set up a show, and be like, oh no, that is, yeah, no, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah. Because also I think there's like a Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say when I first performed I surprised my mom. This is like the second record that I released. I surprised my parents and told them that I was doing this thing, like just writing music and releasing records. And when I performed, I like went to karaoke and performed a song for my mom. Just somebody else's song, not mine. She had this. I don't know how to reproduce the look, but it was just like. What's going on? What is this? It was that kind of look. So I don't know if maybe you just get a lot of that. Hey, sorry, Victoria.
Yeah, I think it's also wild because like I think Korean church is also a place where Koreans will like learn like bass or guitar drums, like in playing in the church band. Which is like, oh, you're cool. You play, I play guitar in the church band. So there's like that opposite side of the coin too. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just have to like that pipeline to like cool punk band.
And like some of these churches, I saw. Like my parents went to like when I went back to Iowa, they were like at a different church, which had like a whole like musical thing going on. There was like a band that was up there for most of it, and they like played interludes and whatnot. And I was just like, some of these churches, they have like serious sound systems and equipment, which, yeah. I guess it must be all of the donation money. That's where it's going.
Yeah.
No.
This makes me
Isn't
think of
everything
my
a tax
grandma
write-off
so
though?
much.
Everything's a tax write-off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Victoria, how's the? So you have a single that just came out last week, and like you've got is an EP or an LP coming out afterwards?
Yes. Not like we haven't announced it officially in written form on the internet anywhere. So this is just for the good folks I've watched for the past hour. But yeah, so we're doing that next year. I'm pretty excited. Yeah, this is like my first like LP, and there's a much larger team involved than I would have imagined. Like when I was recording, I was just like, maybe someone will make a cassette for me, and that will be cool, and we'll do like 50 cassettes, and they're like, that'll be sick. And now it's like this whole thing, and we're just like talking about vinyl and like a press rollout and like all these different things and tours next year. And so it'll be, yeah, I'm excited for people to hear it. It also is like, oh, this music's so old. Like I just put it out already, but I'm excited. I'm nervous because it's like next year with my other band, it's like we have 3 weeks of touring in February, 3 weeks in March, and 2.5 weeks between April and May in Europe, and then I'm going on my full band tour in June. So that's just booked out already. I'm talking about, doing some dates in January maybe on the East Coast. And I'm like, wow, I just like, and then by the end of June, it's like my lease, or I guess July, like my lease is up. So I got to decide whether or not I'm going to stay in Iowa City in this spot, but probably because I don't think I have the energy to move. So yeah, it's definitely like, this is my longest break between now and January, where I don't really have a lot of shows going on and just like can be home for a longer time. And I think I'm trying to like soak that all in. Because I'm so afraid of next year. Yeah. Yeah. What about you? So you had your albums that came out this year, right?
That was in June, and
Yeah.
the rollout for that was it was interesting to see. It's basically like I'll release a record about every 2 years, and it's fascinating like how much the industry changes even 2 years. Like I think it's changing at like a faster and faster clip. Part of it is just really I think like at the top level what's happening is just that there's stuff happening in the media where it's more and more difficult. Like 10 years ago, it would be more common for somebody to say, oh, let me go to this one music outlet and like see what music is being written about and see what's going on there. And that's not what's happening anymore. So the way in which news about music and stuff gets distributed out, it's changed a lot. And so every 2 years, I kind of have to go back, and it's not going completely back to the drawing board and starting fresh, but it's always interesting to see where things are headed. But the release I think overall went very well. So, but my streaming numbers aren't amazing, but I'm just a very very niche artist. Maybe that's what's going on. The one thing that's been very creatively satisfying for me has been just out of a release is just making music videos, which I started on phone cameras and whatnot, and have moved to other media since then. I've got like a nice camera that I'll be using for the next record, but it's been enjoyable going through that process. There's always a bar raised because I think cell phone video isn't going to work as well as it once did like 4 or 5 years ago. But so you had a great music video that you released with the single this last week. I was gonna say, and I told you this, like I think it was great because I'm the way that I interpreted it was that it was commenting on COVID, like the situation, but I didn't realize that until like 3/4 of the way through the video, when you had the people holding versions of themselves with them standing behind, and I was just like, oh my god, why didn't I see that? But at the beginning I thought oh, she's just really lame and just has these little paper cutout friends. I thought it was a commentary on like your social life in general that you had imagined, and that's the way it read, and I think it was good that it read that way. And it wasn't until 3/4 of the way through, and it was nice because there's even before any music videos came out after COVID started, I was like, I already know it's going to be such a cliche. People are going to do like these Zoom music videos where it's like, oh, passing stuff to the square above, and they're on Zoom, and I was like, I get it. Even though nobody's released anything, like I get it, and it's already been done. And you didn't do that. You still commented on the same thing, but you didn't do that, and I thought that was nice.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so happy with how it turned out. Like I've never done a music video before, but I've always had this like interest in film and in like film editing. And it was like, okay, I'm just gonna make it because I feel like it's like too hard to verbalize what I actually want to another person. Sometimes, you know, especially in editing, I'm just like, what if we did this shot? If you like don't even like see all of the like footage that you have, like how to even imagine like what isn't there, if that even makes sense. But you know, assuming that you like direct and you know edit your own videos, like hopefully that like is coming across. But yeah, it was super fun. It was like my mom and I made it together. So and she did great. She helped to make all the little figurines, and she's very crafty and very neat at you know in ways that I'm not. So yeah, shout out to mom. She's great. It was so funny. Just being like, I need you to help me with this thing, and it's gonna be so silly, but she liked it too. So yeah, and my friends liked it. So you know, I feel like I'm just like, if the people that are in it and help make it like it, then I think that's you know enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember watching your video of like about the park near your house. Do you know the one that I'm talking about? Like the
Was
children's playground?
yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was it was so cool to like have this like other story that's like happening with while the like music is like telling a different story. Like I love videos like that too.
Yeah, I you know it's funny because I get a lot of people that tell me they're like, "Oh, the story like it has nothing to do with like what's going on screen." And I guess there's two thoughts that I had about that. One is that there always is some connection. Usually it will be pretty abstract. Um yeah, in that actually I don't know what the connection is in that music video, because the story is that, well, I mean it's a true story, is that, you know, I've found something that I want to take some political movement towards, and it's about making it. Oh, they're both abstractly about change, because in the video story I'm like trying to make one small change that I hope will make sort of bigger changes in the future. And in the song, it's kind of the opposite, because I'm talking about sort of all these things that are going on outside and how I don't want to be changed because there's a particular thing that I want to sort of hold to. And I think that's really what the connection is. And it's supposed to just make you think about I guess political or personal change, and then thinking about that in like a few different ways. But the thing that I want to tell people is like, you're super familiar with seeing a story and then hearing music which is only abstractly related to the story. It's called all soundtracks of movies. Like, why is this a new thing that I'm doing? Like, this is literally all movies do this, and nobody goes to a movie and is like, oh my, what? They played this song. Like the Rolling Stones weren't even born when this happened. Like how does that make any sense? I'm like, no, we've done this all the time. It's a very familiar thing that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Except I guess I'm filming a story and then using this as a soundtrack, which has an abstract connection. And you got to think about it. So what's the connection there? Sort of why does that make it fit? And which is the exact exercise that film critics do when they're watching a movie.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I think that relationship is changing too, in part because of TikTok. Like, I think the way like, and I'm like an older Zoomer. Like, I'm not even like the youngest of the young kids. I'm really bad at TikTok. It's not really my scene. But like them thinking about like the videos they're making and the music that goes along with it as like soundtrack music, and so that's why all these like very different kinds of songs are becoming popular on TikTok. Like the biggest one right now is No Children by the Mountain Goats. Like,
I saw that.
yeah. And it's like, you know, Run DMC, but also Olivia Rodrigo. It's like pulling from all these, and like, you know, city pop song got super big on TikTok. Like Japanese, you know, 70s funk. Like,
How does that happen? Because my understanding, two points. One,
Yeah.
one is that the song "No Children" is about a divorce.
yes, it's
And
about a fictionalized divorce.
most people who TikTok are too young to have ever divorced,
Yes.
unless there's some like divorce explosion happening
No,
during
no.
COVID that amongst young people that we haven't heard about, and that's what's caused this.
Not at all. I think it's just like the drama of the song is like what they're attracted to, you know, is my best understanding. And somebody made a dance. It's like kind of ridiculous. But yeah, like I think that's just like there's so much of a like broader appreciation for music, or like people not being so, you know, I listen to blah 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 genre, because they're just like, well, this is for like this kind of mood and this is for that kind of mood, and just like kind of thinking about music like in that way, in a much more abstract and like cinematic kind of way. So I think it's opened the door for, you know, a lot of people. There isn't like a kind of like, you know, one box of just like, this is a TikTok like song, this is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, that's interesting.
Can you upload
So,
your own music to TikTok?
Yes, and a lot of like distribution will like also automatically put it on TikTok.
Yeah, no, I have a few songs that ended up on. You know, I don't think anybody except for me has used them. But I did notice that it's there. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what to do with, because I was thinking I would just take portions of like my music videos and post them on TikTok. But other than that, I don't really. I guess I need to like waste a lot of my life and look through TikTok.
Yeah.
You know what I hate about and I know they do this on purpose, is that you want to exit out of TikTok, so you press the back button and it doesn't take you out. It takes you to a new video on TikTok. And you keep doing that and you're like, oh my God, I've got to double press back in order to get out of TikTok. I hate that. I know what you're doing, TikTok, and I disapprove.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too much. And there's, if you watch too many in a row, if you know, if the algorithm picks that up, they'll give you this one video that's like a, hey, it's good to like, maybe it's time to take a break, you know, come back later. And it's not, it's like they frame it as like this thing for well-being, but it's just like they know that if you keep watching, like you're gonna get so sick of it and then you won't ever want to come back. And it's really to just like keep you hooked on it. This is why I don't like look at TikToks, because I'm just like, I know I'm gonna get sucked in. I know that's how that happens. Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, there were those studies and whatnot that they were like Instagram like makes people feel terrible about themselves, right? So
Yeah.
I think no, that's probably for like liability purposes. They're just like, we got to put this video in occasionally. Oh.
Yeah.
I see JDH has commented. So yes, it took me a while after I saw your comment. I was like, yes, I do have a video that has Zoom in it, and hopefully it's not more than one. And that is the video for Teenage Eyes, because I'm just filming myself playing Dungeons or playing Mothership over Zoom from like
Nice.
a profile angle. So yes, there is Zoom in that music video. It's a good eye.
That's funny. Yeah. Can we wrap it up? How do we want to end this conversation? Maybe, yeah.
Oh, well, because unless somebody has another idea, I was going to say Ian was saying that it's the interactions that I dig the most at a live show, especially being able to meet the artist off stage if time permits. So one idea is that we could like see if anybody has any questions and do like a Q&A for just a little bit. And if nobody has any Q&A, any questions, then we can just pass it off like we just ran out of time and we had to...
I think you should like promote your stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
also good. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why
Well,
don't
I guess
manage
we
it
could
yet.
like leave the Q&A open while we're promoting our stuff, so that gives people time to think of a question.
Sure.
You can
Yeah.
have like 3 minutes
Please give us
to
a question.
say whatever you want.
Someone give us 2 questions. Give us 2 questions in the chat. Who's up first for promotion?
Oh, I think you should go first because
Okay.
you have something that just came out.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm Victoria Vark. That's my project. I just released a single called "I Can't Bike" on Get Better Records, and I will be on tour this November. I have tickets for sale in Chicago and Minneapolis, and I'm also playing a few house shows in Kalamazoo and Peoria. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, it was me. Okay, I've got to move the ticker to my website. What am I? Oh yeah, so I had a record out in June, called 10 Songs of Worship and Praise for Our Tumultuous Times. You can look it up on my website or on Bandcamp. Or if you go to my label Don Giovanni Records, you'll be able to see stuff from there, and go find you can find stuff from other of their artists there. I do have some shows coming up. One, I would say to go to. Geez, I was going to say you should go. What I will do is tonight I will go to my website and update it with information about shows, and then you should go to the website and then check it out, and then you'll know what's coming up. I do have some appearances that I can't say anything about yet, but
Are you replacing Ed Sheeran on Make Him Alive?
Can I say what the venues are? No, I think I will be playing some shows at some fancy venues with some people. I was very honored to be playing these shows that I can't tell you anything about, but just like go to the website and like
just be proud of me.
I am playing I'm doing a feature set at an open mic called Big City Folk Song Club tomorrow, so I think you'll be able to see something about that. And then next month I'm doing a quick set at Joe's Pub for it's the theme is that there are a number of other Asian American artists, so some a dancer, there are some theater persons as well, and a few singer-songwriters. And so you can, when I think I posted the information on that on my Facebook, so you should be able to check that out. But yeah, I don't know, other than that I'm gonna just write stuff. And oh, here we've got some questions.
Cool.
Where was the Victoria? The obvious question is, can you really not bike?
No, I cannot. I do not know how to ride a bike.
Oh, okay.
True fact about myself.
I guess this one is for both of us. What album would you recommend, new or old, and what are you listening to?
I've been listening to a lot of the new Devin Schaefer record. It's on American Dream Recordings. It's like experimental but ambient. Very, very beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. What albums do I? This is also folding in another question. What album would I recommend? Oh, that's a terrible question to ask me because I can't only because I can't think of anything. It's a great question. Um.
Chris, what about you?
Oh, good, good.
Album I would recommend.
Mhm.
Um, I think the most important album for me, it's actually why I started writing about Korean music, was it's a artist called Donna Whale. So I think both their albums are actually on Spotify. It's like just indie pop rock, but that changed my perspective about what Korean music could be. So that album is like really important. I have the album art tattooed on my arm.
Oh, ah. Do the tattoos hurt? Yes. I've thought about getting a
Tattoos
tattoo
hurt a
of a cat.
lot. I have 22, so yeah, they hurt a lot.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Don't get them. Don't get them.
Um, albums that I listen to and recommend, new or old. Well, one thing that I have been listening to more lately is I used to listen when I was in high school. I used to listen to REM quite a bit, and I stopped listening to them because I not for any particular reason, but it's because I'm so darn busy. That's why I stopped listening to music recreationally. But I have started listening to them again, and I think what was interesting is at the time, I remember waiting for their record. They would have a new record coming out, and I would think about, I would be listening to the single. It'd be like, is this the song that they should have picked for their single? Do they have any other ones? And thinking about the record rollout as a listener back then, and now it's interesting now releasing my own records and thinking about a lot of the same process, like how do I put a record together, and I think that's been something that's been um, interesting for me. Um,
Oh, we got another question. Let's see. Any other Korean artists you guys recommend? Yes. So I love the new Sasami singles that she's put out. I think she has like a new record coming out next year. But
mhm.
she's super cool. She like studied French horn in conservatory and but is also like producing a bunch of people. So yeah, those songs are so sick. And then I'm friends with this songwriter, Katie Sin, who's has just a lovely voice and is like so good at guitar. And we met in Iowa, which was really special.
Um, for me, so I'm always interested in just seeing like new like stuff that's coming out and just I don't know. I think for a lot when I think about Korean music or Koreans making music in America, I guess I'm always like forward looking about that, and so I am actually sort of interested to hear the rest of the Victoria Vark or the Victoria Vark record, sort of that will be coming out at some point next year. There's also um, it's a queer Korean artist. I think she's out of Chicago. I think released a single not long ago. The artist name is No So, and so I'm interested. I
Oh
think it's
yeah.
coming out on
Hmm.
Partisan, and so I'm interested to see what happens with that. And yeah, I'm excited to just hear what new music is coming out. Because I think there was this article on Pitchfork that was released a few months ago talking about it was basically talking about how disparate the concept of Asian American music is, and I think sort of part of the struggle there was to try and come up with like a cohesive concept for what Asian American music is, and I think that I understand sort of where the author's coming from, but I think that the posture is sort of is very backwards in some sense because whatever Asian American music ends up being, I'm not worried that there isn't going to be like a cohesive concept of Asian American music. I don't think that's that's an anxiety that anybody should have. And the way to approach that isn't to have a writer sort of in the middle of development kind of prescribe the solution as to what Asian American music will be. The way to do it is to just like be open-minded and to find out like what new Asian American music is coming out. And then 5 or 10 years down the line, people will look back at things that were successful and things that were great and awesome. And then they'll be able to tease out what the story is at that time. The way to do it isn't to do it sort of the other way, which is to have somebody try and prescribe it from the beginning. And I think after reading that article, which I thought was important to have come out, it's been making me think a lot about what my approach to like listening to, you know, Asian American music in general is. And for me, I'm just really excited about sort of any new stuff that's coming out and just trying to be supportive of that. And I don't know, that's my thought.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice sentiment. And I think I agree. Like, if it's like, it's right now we have like a huge opportunity to like figure out to be part of a narrative that is changing and like that is opening up. And hopefully, you know, historians will get it right looking back, you know.
I think the problem with that is people want to be the narrator of that story over the story itself. You see that now with Korean media and like Netflix and Squid Game and all that bullshit that's coming out about like Korean soft power, government creating K-pop and all that bullshit that goes on Twitter. Like, I don't know if you guys ever watch it. It's pretty hilarious how people try to like say all these things without really having context of it. And so I think like what you're saying, Andrew, is like looking back, someone's going to have to write a story, but hopefully that story is about the story and not that person's experience with that story.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess maybe the thing to do is just to, I mean, I think it's an active process. Like, I mean, and it's something that we have control over. We could just like default and then let's say the you know, traditional white American media tell that story, but we have to sort of keep active and keep our voices out there in order to help participate in what that is. And even though there isn't that much of a voice that's given to a lot of Asian American artists, I think there's at least the potential for that to be something that has more of a role. But yeah, it does mean that, you know, we need to be active and think about that. You know, because I think there is like something that I think about a lot too, is just this idea that there is a lot of stuff coming from Korea, which is great stuff. And no artist from any group should, from an artistic sense, sort of feel threatened about somebody else having good stuff that's coming out. But at the same time, we want to make sure that there isn't a narrative, for instance, that I know that I've seen happen a lot in the last 5 years, where like South by Southwest for the longest time was saying, well, we filled our racial diversity requirement because we've got Korea Night Out, which is all Koreans.
Oh, I could give you so many stories about K-pop Night Out, Jesus.
But you know, the idea though is that I think there's a lot of subconscious, sometimes it's kind of conscious too. There's this idea that, well, we filled the racial diversity requirement with people from Asia, and so as a result, you know, Asian Americans sort of get excluded from the picture, which ends up, it's like, that's literally a white nationalist statement.
Yeah.
I know how that whole thing started. I know the people who put it on. I know a lot of the background details about that, and it's a lot of strategic export and dealings of why certain people came over, And that's one of the things with South by Southwest now, with the people they announce from Korea, which I watch, it's kind of the same people. And I'll probably get blacklisted from South by Southwest now for saying this, but it's a lot of the relationships are continuing for that, right?
Uh-huh.
And so they're not allowing, like, the true spectrum of Korean artists are not all being included in the bundle to like come over, because there's weird stuff and there's like very mainstream stuff, but it seems like it's always the same groups for some reason. And part of that is you have labels who are supporting Korean bands outside of Korea, bringing them in, which is understandable. But then Korea itself already has the pre-set relationships where they can easily kind of go over the humps and have the funding to get over here.
Well, one way to address that, and I'm not saying this is easy, is to just apply for another. You could create a Korean indie showcase, and then you pick the artists. The difference is that there's funds that it probably costs money to be able to. I mean, of course, it costs a fair amount of money to bring any band over from Korea, and you can of course have them foot the bill for that. But that provides a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
You're not relying. I mean, in some ways, that's the same situation that Asian Americans had, is that they're just not going to be included in K-pop Night Out.
Yeah.
Because there's one showcase that's deciding everything, and they have legitimately they have like their own artistic viewpoint about how they want it set up, but the idea is to figure out how to set up another showcase. And there's probably a money issue. I know I don't know all the details about how to set a showcase up. I set up a showcase for CMJ Music Marathon before it died, but I imagine you've got to figure out a relationship with the venue and all that stuff. But that would be another way to go. The whoever controls the other thing, they'd have no say in this.
Yeah, and it's like, I think so much of that is just like convincing, like, whatever white people in power, and control South by Southwest. It's just like, there can be, a couple different things that are, Asian arts, or, that can exist at once and be all different, and people, like, it's not going to change the market because it should be things that like people are interested in going to. There's just like 85 million, of the like, white indie labels that like all have their showcases, and it's never like a problem. So, yeah. But I think it's also like, it's part of the reason why we're here and we're having this conversation, because we're all invested in changing that narrative as artists, as consumers, as readers, as listeners. And I think that's really cool, and I'm so glad I've gotten to connect with Chris for a while about music, and now that we're all three having this conversation together.
I just realized how old I am now.
No.
It took him 1 hour and 23 minutes.
Generationally different.
Yeah.
Like just how blogging, when I started blogging to now, it's just like an entirely different beast.
Yeah. And I'm sure it'll be different in the next 3 months too. Yeah.
Well, I have to say thank you guys for finally scheduling this. Maybe we can do it again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun conversations, and we can get into more argumentative conversations about other things that we don't agree with.
I can't wait for that. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, thanks for tuning
right.
in, everybody, and thanks for chatting. This was so fun.
Okay.